Okay, it is April 22nd. Taxes are done unless you are filing for an extension for October. I can't believe it's already April. Oh my gosh. March Madness is gone. Uh, Innovation continues to be rampant and crazy. AI is taking over the world. All the issues outside of the US are still there. Um, it's amazing what's going on, really. We have a great guest today, and Llewellyn King may join us a little late. He's having a little transition challenge. Um, but before we get going, let's have our own John
Good
Simply Butler
evening.
play some.
Well, not too long ago, in 1944, when every mother's son was running off to war, they had to lift their spirits high. For Uncle Sam, motherhood and apple pie. Instead of spending money that they did not have on hot spots in the Bronx, they went to hear that kind of jazz. They played in funky, honky tonks because it made you wanna jump, shout, knock yourself out. The boogie woogie beat is what I'm talking about. If you had the heaver divas, you could dance away to the boogie woogie music. The piano man was going to town. Now it had the kind of music that would fill the halls. The plunking and the planking drove 'em up the walls, and they would dance and drink their gin. And if the cops buzz, they joined in. So everybody partied till the cows came home, 'cause that's what boogie's for. And every night that dump would jump to keep 'em coming back for more.
Woo! I like that. That's
That's
nice.
an old Jim Croce song. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Johnny.
Man, let me.
Johnny, what I don't know what's happening, Johnny, is way things are people are getting displaced, fired, the growth of the companies. There are hundreds of companies paying millions of dollars to Anthropic and OpenAI and Google to do their AI thing. I mean, it's just insane what's happening, the Chinese are rushing and taking their companies public. DeepSeek, Tencent, Alabama, investing in DeepSeek billions before it goes public. Micron, Tesla announced their Terra factory, Terra Fab, whatever it's called. It's going to be the largest fab in the planet. They partner with Intel. Software companies appearing out of everywhere. NVIDIA continues their growth, or the largest company, most uh, you know valuable company in the planet. I know that the whole education academic sector is growing like crazy as well. And we actually have a great guest to discuss many things related to academia and what's happening with smart cities and transportation and many other things and projects. Johnny, what's your take? I feel like there's a huge tsunami, multiple tsunamis going on. What's going to come out of all this?
There are multiple tsunamis. We are switching from trains to airplanes. We're switching from the telegraph to telephones. We're switching from horses to the combustion engine. And the investment community is saying, what would be the winners? How can we be the winners? In our life, we're switching from to the dot-com era, from typewriters and from memos. And so what we have is billions of investment in taking a risk on a future technology. And that future technology is in the cloud. That future technology would guide everything that we do. That future technology will allow us to make reservations. Not only that, we can have an agent that will make the reservation for us. we don't even have to do so. That future technology would take me to San Marcos in a car with absolutely no driver. So we're betting on billions and billions of dollars. And the 5 or 6 companies that's carrying the stock market now is making the following bet. From a sociological point of view, people would change their behavior. They would continue to provide data so that we can have data centers, and the data will feed back and have different kinds of predictions for businesses. Businesses are thinking that the more data that we have, better our business models. We don't have to guess at things completely anymore. We have so much data now. We can predict what people would do simply by based on credit card data, telephone data, flight data, or travel data. And I can predict where people will be, what they're going to do, and etc. So we in a massive transformation, 2 things: human behavior and the business models that allow wealth creation and provide for the goods and services that we need to make it through the day. Remember the basic things that we need: food, shelter, travel for business enterprise, children. The headaches of children, they don't change. You can go back to the ancient Greeks, you can go back to the biblical resources, and the problems are the same. The question is, how do we solve them? Right before this great tsunami, the investment in what can we call living forever was great in Silicon Valley. So Andreas, where we are is when in the midst of business models. I had the opportunity Friday night. I was a distinguished alum at LSU in 2012, and the Speaker of the House, Speaker Johnson, the U.S. House, who's an LSU grad, went in as a distinguished alum at LSU in Baton Rouge. And there are just lots of issues that we have to solve. But it has always been the business community that solves things. And I think that is where we are. Now, here's the question, Andreas. With all of the investments, is that a bubble? Is it a bubble to be investing so much in AI? Is it a bubble to be taking and creating so many different kinds of jobs? Because, we're not talking about the kinds of jobs that we're creating. I can tell you this: colleges and universities will have to reimagine their professional schools. By professional schools, I mean where I taught, the business schools. You have to reimagine engineering. You have to reimagine the professional schools. You never have to reimagine philosophy or biology or chemistry, or pharmacy. That's continued research. That's basic research, which provides the products, by the way, for the business community. But how those products become enterprises. So, for example, your Project Austin asked one thing. Of all of the great things that's happening in the laboratories, how can we create business models around them? And remember, the lesson from George Kosmeski of my lifetime is that science, technology, and jobs starts with engineering. It starts with science and technology, and not management, accounting, and finance.
Right.
So what we have to do, we have to continue to win the battle of science. And for the first time in my lifetime, in your lifetime, and my parents' lifetime, if they were living, we have a new hegemony now in the world, which is China. And everybody does not look to America for the model now. They also look for China. But what we do have in America is something that nobody has. We're based on ideas. We're not based on land. We're not based on anything but the idea that all people are created by their creator and endowed with basic rights. We're one of the few countries that do that, and that has always taken us forward. Although we've had some humps, some like we have now, some bumps in the road. But I think that we are living in a situation where people said, "Hey, the world is round," and our entire world will fall down around us as it rebuilds. So we're
Mm-hmm.
standing in the ashes of previous technologies and watching the rise of new technologies that's providing new business plans. And I'll say the last thing. As a result, in my world, and I do a lot of this, the money is stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
The money has said, okay, there's so much uncertainty now, and I'm not talking about the war. I'm just talking about how we do basic things in life. There's so much
Mm-hmm.
uncertainty now that the money, that is, how people invest, and also in our case, how government invests. And the question that we have is, are we going to go back to World War II, where the government took over the captives of industry and said to Ford Motor Company, make the tanks.
Mm-hmm.
Said to General Motors, make the Jeeps,
Right.
and etc. So we're living in an opportunistic time too. With all of these changes, there's always opportunities.
Absolutely.
So I
Well,
took
what?
I took I took my distinguished space from Mr. King. So I took his time too.
No
Okay.
worries, no worries. So before I introduce our guest and do the sequence there of, I think that the biggest thing about AI is that AI is a horizontal paradigm shift. It's not a vertical like the iPhone or wireless technology or even
Right.
autonomous vehicles, because AI is going to be applied on every industry, on every sector of humanity, and it will transform it somehow as humans get creative about how to use it. So, in the case of education, how do students learn? How do teachers teach? How do people get their PhD programs? So on and so on and so on. And so it's kind of fascinating. So we're lucky to have Dr. Bradley Lane, director of the Institute for Government Innovation. He's an associate professor of practice in the Department of Geography and Environmental Studies at Texas State University. And, for full disclosure, I was research faculty at Texas State for about 8 years. And I was lucky enough to be able to retire last year, building some labs there and doing some cool things. So, Bradley, welcome to the show.
Thank you kindly. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I've not been on any show where I had a live music introduction. That's a first for me. I might be a requirement for future appearances. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, tell us real quick, um, what do you do at Texas State, and maybe some of the things that are you guys are working on these days, since I've left some last April.
Sure. So I succeeded your former colleague, Dr. Rebecca Davio, as
Hmm.
director of the Institute of Government Innovation when she also retired. I started remotely October 1st, and I've been on campus since the semester started in January.
Hmm.
Prior to that, I was at the University of South Florida for a brief period. I was a professor for a long time at the University of Kansas in the urban
Oh,
planning
cool.
program. Yeah,
I'm a Jayhawk. I'm a Jayhawk.
you're a Jayhawk?
Yeah.
How are you? Very good. Very
Yeah.
good. Um, I was there for 10 years, and then I was a professor at the University of Texas at El Paso for 3 years before that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I myself am a transportation geographer, uh,
Mm-hmm.
even though I've only worked in a geography department for about a year now.
Right.
And spent the rest of my career in public administration and urban planning. Worked with a lot of civil engineers. The areas of transport I have worked in have largely been in evolving technologies in transportation and their impact. Things
Right.
that influence their diffusion as well as the impact of that diffusion. So electric vehicles, really any alternative fueled vehicle, autonomous vehicle technology, shared mobility, micromobility, uh, really kind of any disruptor are things that I personally am interested in and have researched.
Mm-hmm.
My role at the Institute's a little different. I as the institute, excuse me, the institute has been around for 23 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I am only its third director. Um, it has historically served a couple of purposes for the Department of Geography and Environmental Studies.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's been a we exist as kind of a term that's often used as an in-house consulting firm. It's really a little bit more of a research center that does executes various types of analyses and projects using our in-house staff, our very eager and very talented body of students, and wherever we can get them faculty expertise to help address questions that a lot of areas or a lot of different entities maybe don't have the resources to execute the tasks that they're tasked with. And so our students get some really valuable experience, and we get to be part of a lot of really fun and a wide variety of projects that represent the breadth of the expertise that geographers offer.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Got it. So one of the last projects that I did with Dr. Davio was we collaborated in a TxDOT project in the aviation department, doing a study and a report for the vertical takeoff and landing future of vehicles in Texas. I call it the flying economy, which is kind of coming. I don't know if that turned into more follow-up projects that you guys are working on or driving.
It has. We are hopefully soon, very, very soon, to start a next phase of that. It's kind of all over, but the signatures at this point.
Good.
We're going to start. We're going to start a. It's not quite a continuation of that study, but sort of further development of that, plus another report they had done, and tie that a little bit more specifically into a set of. Essentially a set of briefs and recommendations for the state legislature to consider when they reconvene.
Right. Yeah, and the reason I bring that up is because, to me, it's we're talking about AI and all these things and autonomous vehicle, but the cars and the flying drones, and I mean, it's the Jetsons, right? I mean, who knew that this was all going to happen at the same time? And so Texas State has an opportunity to drive that journey in Texas. And I tell you, I keep driving around Texas, Johnny. I don't know how much you're driving these days, but buildings, warehouses, cranes everywhere. I mean, it's just what's happening is just crazy. Texas is doubling in size in no time. It's just fascinating. So anyway, I digress, and maybe we can start asking Dr. Lane some ideas and thoughts about how he's experienced at multiple universities and coming to Texas finally, and what he sees in the changes of academia and anything else you want to take the questions around, Johnny.
Well, let me just make a comment. Micah came through IC Square, which we're proud of. He gave the University of Texas $1 billion. Yesterday to build the medical center. But we tore down the urban center to build the center, and they decided that's not enough space. So it's going to be built right up here I'm in Great Hills, so it's right up at 4 blocks from my from where
I really?
And then there's another, and right now there's no housing in the domain. So Dick Anderson, a dear friend of mine, they are building a facility with condos that's going to serve the domain in all age group for all of the great companies who work there and all of the people who want to retire there so that you can work. And of course, out by the airport, they're building a new domain, and everything is going on as we expect between 8 to 10 million more people from Round Rock to San Antonio in Texas. So your perceptions are correct. And I want to ask our great guest, first of all, how you doing, sir? And let me just say this. I have been to the University of Kansas to give a talk. And I said, can you take me to your gym? So, went over there and you walk in, they had a museum, and it was like 1902. It was all wood. I said, when are you guys going to tear this thing down and build a real arena? Of course, that didn't go over well.
I expect not. So
let me just, what we've done in Texas in the last, I would say now, 48 years, is to try to make universities a contributor to the economy of the state, which a lot of states have never done. For example, I do not think that the University of Texas would allow Houston to become like Detroit, because that's just a failure in technology and no new places in technologies. So since you've been here and you're at a great growing university, tell me, what's your perception of how you take the knowledge and the know-how from Texas State and take it to the state of Texas or even nationally, internationally, such that the university become a contributor to the economy rather than a drain on the state budget for funding. How do you perceive that now that you're where you are?
Well, first, let me start off. I've moved around a lot, but I'm from Austin originally, and I originally left when I graduated high school in 1998. At the risk of dating myself, and I have seen those same changes you described. I grew up near Mopac in far west, in a little neighborhood called Allendale over there. My father used to work at MCC, which was a microelectronics computer technology.
Oh, well, I knew your father then.
You
I
probably
I was a director of Alcee Square.
Oh yeah, you probably would have in that gray building that looks like a reverse the
Yes.
inverse of a stair. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and when we when he commuted there wasn't anything around. There was nothing around.
Right.
There was barely a road. I mean, there was just little 183 and kind of scootered up, and that was it. So I've seen and witnessed those changes from afar, but my family stayed here, and so I've repeatedly come back and watched them incrementally. One thing that I've thought a lot about, that I've seen a lot, is the disconnect. Okay, the notion of disconnection. I've seen that a lot and by disconnect, I don't necessarily mean a lack of understanding. I mean, I'm not aware of what we're producing or what the other is producing, what the other is capable of. I've seen that in my short time in my role. I'm also internship coordinator, so I help try to recruit internships, take advantage of internships, pair students with jobs. And I've seen a disconnect between the ability of students to communicate the skills they have and the ability of employers to recognize the existence of those skills. Universities generally are really pretty eager to produce students who are going to contribute, directly, that they're going to go on and have productive, positive careers. And the university is still regarded as an incubator of change, of innovation, whether that's in physical sciences or applications in the social sciences, and engineering, whatever. So I think the ability and the interest is already there for making something and developing something that contributes, that grows and that develops. I think the disconnect is still more realizing that it is there and how to make those connections, make those contributions more clear. There's a lot of knowledge that rests in the academy that the professional or private or public sectors would do really good to have, but there isn't quite the accessing and applying that. There's still a disconnect there. So I think there's definitely the intent and strong capability there. It's just not something that, for a host of reasons, is always pulled off correctly or is quite pulled off correctly. One thing upstate, I'll finish up my answer here in a second. One thing that is neat about Texas State University, I think, and everybody I went to high school with, they went to Southwest Texas State, right? When this was a little teaching school on the south side of Austin, now it's a major research university with 40,000 students. I mean, to show you how much things have changed, I would love to go back in time and 30 years ago and tell someone that the sentence Pac-12 champions Texas State made the college football playoff, and then tell someone the only reason that can't be true is because Pac-12 doesn't get avidity. Like that's how much things have changed. One position that a university like this, though, has being that dynamic and that changes, we don't necessarily have some what you might call sort of older or more traditional ways of thinking aren't as institutionalized as far as the role of the academy in application to professional services and activities, and what contributions it can make to the people of the region and the state that it serves. And so, universities like this, University of South Florida, University of Texas, El Paso, where I've been before, they really, I think in many ways, that's an advantage to them, that the connection is that much more direct.
Okay. I think so. And the other thing that has happened, you're right, as Texas State was becoming a major research university, is that Austin or the entire region has bundled over to not just Austin, but it's San
Yeah.
Marcos. It's it's Round Rock, it's
Mm-hmm.
Pflugerville, it's going all the way to Columbus probably. And
Yeah.
that's I-10 way over there. So the transformation that my contention is that Central Texas was transformed by the I.C. Square Institute along with the University of Texas at Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that transformation was based on new ideas, new technologies, and bringing other companies to Central Texas. Economic development is three stools, right? One is you pay people to come here and create and pay them for with tax incentives, right? And then number two, when they get here, you enhance the companies, and number three, you start your own. Well, we did all three.
Yeah.
And if you look at, Dell belonged to us. I don't think that Microsoft will do a Microsoft computer, a health facility in Austin like we have the Dell computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you see, have we gotten just sort of lazy in looking at the future? Are we proactive in doing what we did in the 80s and 90s to create where we are now? Are we headed to becoming a Detroit in 40 years, or Cleveland, or Milwaukee in 40 years? What's the role of the university that you see in making sure that the economy remains vibrant?
That is a really good and interesting set of questions. And if I had equally as good and interesting answers, I'd probably have a higher paying job than this. But the I think, good question. I think there's a couple of different ways to look at it and think about it. One of the great difficulties of our current time, in my opinion, is it is overwhelming. It is very noisy.
Mm-hmm.
There is more innovation than there is ability to assess the utility of that information and where it might be most useful. That to me is something that universities, not only can do, but almost should exist to do. They should be places to experiment, fail, try, see what works, see what doesn't work, see how things work, which is really what they find. So that you don't make the mistake of, say, a Detroit putting all of its eggs in three major auto companies, or in something that can't change or refuses to change or be dynamic. And I think right now there's hesitancy. There isn't a clear path. It's almost like there's one too many things in the air for anyone to do much more than kind of a day by day, month by month approach. Whether that is AI, whether that is the quality of the economy, whether that is international relations, whether that is political division, whatever disruption you want to consider. The other thing I think universities really do well with and should continue to do well with is working at an individual level, at the granular level. We train people. So let's put people in the positions they can to become the best versions of themselves, that they can be entrepreneurial, that they can be successful, that they can fulfill their contributions to society, to themselves, their families, and trust a little bit maybe that will work out for the best. I
Okay.
think if you start at that level, your larger questions, you will avoid falling into traps um, that are, that are sumps on it, that are, excuse me, that are drains on economic development, or that leave an industry or a city openly fragile to, to competition, to outside threat, or to disruption.
I asked that because when I had some professors come see from Macomb in California at my house last night and talk about the university, and I say that because I think that the perception of the universities have changed. I think that what we call higher education, which was once for the elite, if you know what I mean, I think it's being questioned now. Question around national security, question around national identity, and I think how we respond to that becomes very important. And if you look at the combination now, which is new to me, at least outwardly, of the political strategy combining with the research. The research professor, you just want an office, you want to do research, and you want to teach your students how to become researchers. If they want to go get a PhD, they got to learn statistics and how to create wealth. So I think that as we move forward, and if we look at the issues of the state, or even the issues of the world, that to what extent are they turning away from universities to answer those questions? Indeed, away from science to answer those questions. And I've seen that happen in other situations. But more importantly now, are we turning to China to answer those questions and Chinese universities? Because I think that the flow of knowledge, the flow of talent has always been universal. We took our talent after World War II from Germany, and the professors came here to be the professors of engineering and astrophysicists and created our space program and etc. So to what extent do you see that maybe your grandkids might go to China for graduate school?
That's a great question, isn't that? Because I mean, that's, I enjoy, if you can probably guess by my given example earlier, I enjoy thinking about things that are real now that might have seemed completely ridiculous or
Right.
nonsensical 40 years ago, or, gosh, grandchildren. Yeah, that's going to be a while. uh,
Let's let's get Llewellyn King in the conversation. Llewellyn, sorry that you had to wait a while to join us, but here you are. And
That's all
Dr.
right. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm at this meeting. I want to tell you that I'm sitting, I don't know, on the 42nd floor or somewhere of a building in New York. And Austin may be great, but looking out of the window here, New York is still something awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I'm actually at Solomon Partners. We're talking about the future of the electric utility industry. Bradley, how fast can higher education adapt to the rapid changes that are underway in society? AI, attitudes, to everything. Will the universities become anachronisms or will they lead?
They will do a little bit of both. I think they'll do more leading, more contributing than they will be anachronism. I've found not leaders, I shouldn't put that generally, but I've found there can be great resistance and hesitancy to change at the top of any institutionalized area. Academia is no different from that. Given the opportunity, they will lead. I'm more concerned about them not getting that opportunity. Kind of the points that John and Andres were also making about the role of education in the university. That is transitioning, and I think most universities are kind of aware now and a little bit more involved and engaged with that transition from kind of a sole research oriented purpose to one that is a little greater breadth in terms of the different types of skill sets that it graduates people with, different degrees, different levels, different.
Bradley, I'm wondering because when I started covering, and this is a case in point, artificial intelligence, I formed a group of professors and in California, in Spain, in London, or not outside of London, and in New England. And they were the cutting edge. That was 3 years ago. They knew everything that there was to know about AI. They still know what they knew, but they don't know what has happened since. It seems to me that their catch-up is very, they're just not at the cutting edge anymore because the edge is so volatile, so febrile, is moving with such energy. I wonder, will the universities in some way get left behind, or can they absorb the rate of pace into their own thinking and most especially into their own teaching?
I think the universities and science are in the development of theory are somewhat by design deliberate. And I think that the disadvantages with that of not being on the cutting edge are paralleled pretty nicely by the advantages of getting greater certainty with what those contributions are. I've joked, I've been studying autonomous vehicles for 11, 12, 13 years now. And I've joked that autonomous vehicles that entire time, they've been like a bad dissertation project. They're always 18 months away from being done. Since 2013, 2014, 2023, 2024, always 18 months away from having autonomous vehicles everywhere. The reality is, science is supposed to be deliberate. Research means to look again. It's not called search. It's not, and so discovery is part of that, but empirical verification is also an essential part of that. And so I think where universities and I think where higher education can do a good job and maybe could work on doing an even better job is allowing for both of those things to exist, right? Allowing for there to be freedom in teaching, freedom in theses or dissertation development to really try stuff and fail, while having that protected space to do that, while at the same time that also contributes to the broader body of science, understanding of theory, understanding of how things work, so that the contributions that we do make from innovation like AI provide their greatest beneficence to society. That's, I think,
how important, Bradley, is physical location? Earlier, you were talking about Austin, about Texas, with a lot of enthusiasm, and yet we live in a virtual time. My day is spent talking to people on the internet around the world. Nobody near where I live. I just wonder whether are we in a post-location situation when it comes to education, to ideas?
We're post-location in the sense of the diffusion and the interaction of education and ideas, but not necessarily we're not at all post-location, I don't think, in the generation of those ideas, in the importance of human interaction. I think there's more variability, there's more heterogeneity in people's preferred modes of interaction. But as long as there's a human race, place will still matter. That's just how we're wired. What might change might be the exact role that place plays in that. But I don't think the human, and I'm biased as a geographer, but I don't think the human race can ever possibly be truly, fully post-location.
Thank you. A final question, and I'm very conscious of doing this in front of John Sibley Butler because it will provide him with information with which to ridicule, attack, and vilify me, which are the bulwarks of our friendship. I used to be very critical of the idea that universities could teach creative writing. I've read a lot of books lately, a lot of novels by people who went through creative writing at universities, and I have been forced to eat humble pie, and to say that is indeed a good thing. Another one is media, and I forget the term, media training, media understanding, which I thought, in my simplistic way, if you can read, you know the media. But in fact, now we have a much more complex media environment, and these universities that had media studies as opposed to journalism, media studies really have an important role to play, at least in developing a sophisticated populace that can appreciate the nuances of everything that's coming at them, the complexities and often the disingenuous nature of the information flow. So I have to, in front of Johnny, also, Johnny, I have to tell you, I did this television program with Nicholas Holman from Macomb School College, and then I wrote a column about him, and I have had huge response, and he was wonderful.
Well, absolutely. Thank you. He's a great colleague. Yes.
He's very talented. He was very interesting. People who haven't seen this may want to see it on White House Chronicle. You can find it on the web, which is explaining how to use the internet more effectively, and don't let AI boss you. You boss AI. Keep asking, keep bugging it. He uses the word iterate a lot. It was an extraordinary interview, and I'm grateful to McCombs for having him and for him for coming on. And I'm hugely unwise in saying this in front of John Sibley Butler.
Well, we know that we are the center of the universe. We just let the East Coast schools understand that. They still think it's that little Ivy League.
I know.
There,
I was talking to somebody. I was talking to somebody at Oxford, and they said, "Well, of course, we are not what we used to be."
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Llewellyn, let me just comment on your comments, because I thought if you look at one of the most interesting things, I think that if you want to be a journalist and cover politics, you should major in political science. I think if you want to be a journalist and study, anything having to do with medicine, you should study biology. I've always said that.
This is true, but journalism is very superficial by its nature.
Right.
It is not because you don't have smart people as journalists.
Right.
Its nature is very instant. An awful lot of covering politics is repeating what people said. I mean, there's a huge industry just in repeating what the president is going to write overnight on Truth Social.
Right.
This passes as journalism. If you're going to be more analytical, you pass really from journalism into something else.
I agree.
You pass actually into close to instant history, and people like Michael Beschloss have been very successful as instant historians, bringing a larger body of knowledge to bear on a current event. But it's not journalism, and it requires a certain education, but a certain intellectual structure to be able to do it. And you're not going to graduate 80, 90, 100,000 journalism students a year who have that skill. It is a skill of the natural scholar. And I do believe there are natural scholars. I'd like to hear Bradley's remark on that. People who, I knew a physicist who wasn't a physicist, but he knew more physics than any of the many physicists I do know. And he was also a brilliant pilot, because he understood things about the dimensions of the airport, the aircraft, its drag, its lift, how a stall propagated down to great minutiae, which most pilots do not know, and a lot of physicists do not know. So what about the natural scholar? Where does the natural scholar fit in, Bradley?
How the natural scholar fits in, another great question. I would definitely put my father in that category. Well, both my parents, really. My dad was a product of several universities, the University of Texas being the last one, but knew how anything mechanical worked. My mother, very similar. She went to college for a year, ran out of money, never able to go back. But her scientific knowledge is light years ahead of mine. Where universities can do really well, and what I think, positions like the role I play as an internship coordinator that the institute does as a bridge between the academic sector and the professional world, is put students like that, people like that, in positions where they can succeed, as to help align them with what opportunities are out there that suits their natural scientific skills, their natural scholar skills. I had a student in here not long ago that is to put it simply, wonderful outdoorsman, and has numerous firearm safety certifications and so on and so forth. And we were able to get them in position to apply for, and they ultimately got an internship with Texas Parks and Wildlife Division. That is the kind of thing that, to me, is an example of where the natural scholar fits. Like that is the best thing possible, not just for the student. I think the student's going to be incredibly satisfied. I hope they're incredibly satisfied and fulfilled doing that. But that their contribution to society will be maximized most by them getting to fulfill that. So that's where I think the natural scholar fits in, and how universities can facilitate it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Llewellyn. Llewellyn, we have kids who are doing upper level mathematics when they're 5 and 6 years old, 8 and 9 years old, and we call those kind of natural scholars, usually related to mathematics and etc. And then we have kids who
could
play
be
piano.
music, it could be literature. I don't.
Yeah, we have kids playing piano, just awesome when they're 12, and we have natural speakers. So I think there's something about the natural. As a matter of fact, when I went to college, my father told me, "Don't allow college to take your creativity from you."
Mm-hmm.
I think your father was very wise, unfortunately.
Yes, because he had, well, Llewellyn, I'm fourth generation now. I like to brag on that too. I don't like to say much. But I say this. He said to me, when you go to college, don't let them take your creativity from you. Because what we do in college is try to standardize how people think through ideas. And if you have that student, and I've had them, they would just say, this is where ideas, entrepreneurship come from. You say, well, do you have it or not? And Llewellyn, we say that in everyday life. He just has it. They have the it. It could be in politics. It could be in physics. It could be in mathematics. It could be in statistics. It could be in sports. They just have the it. So I like the idea about looking at the natural, because as a matter of fact, Llewellyn, we had the Supreme Court Justice gave a talk at Texas last Friday. And he talked about the Constitution, and he talked about the things that that'll make America great. This is Thomas who did this, and I thought it was very, very interesting. But within the context of that speech was what you were talking about. There's something natural about how we think about the world. It's inalienable. It's natural, and who thought of the idea that all people are created equal when I know that I'm superior to everybody? I just don't get that. But that's another issue that we can talk about. No, seriously. So I think that Clarence, he put, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, it was a lot of philosophical questions that he said we really need to think about as we move forward. I like that question. The best question you've asked since we've been together. Of course not. Okay. So can I ask another question here, Llewellyn?
Absolutely.
So to our guests, if we look at let's get universities into the economy, as I like to do, right? And let's look at what your university is doing for technology transfer, which Andre Carvalho kind of set up while he was there. Does your faculty, would you classify your faculty more outward looking or more inward looking? You know what I mean?
Can you say a little bit more what you mean by outward versus inward?
Well, the
I
outward
know
look
where you're going.
faculty looks at the students and try to place and talk to the students about about the history of where you be. So whether or not you're an English major, if you're majoring in anthropology, if you're majoring in biology, if you're majoring in marketing, and etc. And then there's the faculty member who's just concerned with the grades.
Mhm.
So that's the way I looked at faculty meeting. A lot of faculty are really concerned about the future, and another faculty are just concerned about the incoming students and graduating. How did you see that at Texas State?
I would say, and I started graduate school in 2003. So thinking about witnessing evolution of faculties over that, almost quarter century now, faculty are increasingly outward looking.
Okay.
Most, at least in my discipline, in geography, urban planning, public administration, the disciplines I've been associated with, increasingly outward looking, even genuinely concerned about the welfare and well-being of the students and their impact on society, their ability to enter into the workforce and have successful lives. We are always, though, constrained by our internal incentives, right? Like any business, like publications, teaching requirements, service requirements, so on and so forth. And those two things don't always go together with where we put our attention toward.
Right.
More so than other universities I've been affiliated with, Texas State seems to have a pretty good standing attitude of balance of those, of understanding that, it's, we want to grow and are aggressively growing our research enterprise, our contributions to innovation and the economy. But in my opinion, and granted, I've only been here a few months, but still seem also pretty in touch with our roots as a teaching school, as a school whose fundamental contribution is to the individual at the individual level. I frankly wish that were a larger, more overt goal of more universities. And I think that's something Texas State is actually pretty well positioned to do and to keep doing going forward.
As you know, I asked that question because when you look at the tradition of great schools of the East, the Ivy League schools and et cetera, it is really more of a, the family background. The placement is done by, for the most part, family background, And one of the questions that was asked to Justice Clarence Thomas was, when are you going to get away from 2 or 3 schools when we talk about the people who make civil law in America? And those 2 or 3 schools, as we know, are the Ivy League. So if you look at the interns, they're going to come from certain schools, most Ivy League. If you look at the justice, they're going to come from Ivy League schools. So one of the things that was asked was, to what extent are those schools still setting the pace, for how Americans think, and more importantly, the laws that's made in America. And I think that's very, very interesting, which of course put universities still at the very, very center of how economies and indeed how countries develop and states develop. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No. After you, please.
No, I was gonna ask you, Bradley, that what if you could share maybe what's in front of you the next 6 months, what projects you guys are working on or hoping to land, or what's going on with some of your current projects that you may want to highlight and share.
Absolutely. So the primary project that the Institute is working on now is a website called Before, During, After. It's called Before, During, After. It's beforeduringafter.txst.com, I believe. But what it does is it provides city and county specific warnings, informations, and resources for preventative measures, for survival, and for recovery from natural disasters. And it is specifically targeted toward the most vulnerable businesses, most small businesses in those counties. So places that would not have necessarily the resource or the expertise on hand to know how to prepare for, say, an increased wildfire threat or a forecast period of extreme heat, or flooding that may come, from a thunderstorm. We are Texas Search and Rescue is the organization that sponsors that. They likewise have several contributors to help that as well. And so we're in the middle of the amazing staff at the Institute is in the middle of continuing to grow and expand that resource and improve how it collects information, processes it. And likewise, we're in the middle of doing further research on understanding how places starting in the region, but ultimately we'd like to do Texas, ultimately like to do the whole country, how they prepare, how they handle communication, and how they recover from major disasters. Working on a few other things as well. We're working on a pilot project to develop tactile maps for the visually impaired for the Texas Parks and Wildlife, so that they can access those resources. There's the Advanced Air Mobility Project that you mentioned. That is the successor to you and Dr. Davia's great work. We just wrapped up a project for the city of San Marcos, digitizing all their water easements. Those have been, done. That was decades of over a century of paper records that are all now digitally accessible and able to be, kept in the cloud. And then we've got a few other things in the pipeline that are largely involved around improving the resiliency of the region, whether that is economic resiliency, environmental resiliency, individual resiliency. And those are some areas that I think geographers are uniquely positioned to make extraordinary contributions to. Geography is less a science, a more way of doing science. So all geographers really, it's a very plug and play discipline. Any geographer, no matter what their expertise is, like planning, really capable of doing anything. They just bring an enhanced spatial expertise to it, an enhanced spatial way of thinking to any problem. And so I think that makes the work we do here really, really interesting, and I hope really, really impactful for the region going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Now, my colleague has said that maybe there's a new geography. There's no geography with the internet. I mean, he said he does, Llewellyn said he interacts with people all around the world. Of course, there's a new book. I guess there's a book called, The New Geography and the End of Space, the End of Time, not time, but the End of Geography. How is that technology in the research tradition? How's the new geography, which is no geography, how does that come into your research plans?
Oddly enough, I think it makes geographic factors even more important. Place, space, proximity as things, human interactions as things that people value and provide and hold near.
That's Cochrana's book, by the way, Kotkin.
Yeah. On one hand, we can all have this conversation from 4 very different spots. On the other hand, those buildings out Llewellyn's window are still there, still pretty full. Those transit systems still pretty congested. So clearly there's some importance of place there.
Yeah.
So it's not that it gets rid of it, it's that it changes it. And will continue to change. That'll just be the nature of the human species going forward.
Good. As a matter of fact, with a lot of my podcasts, they ask the interactive podcasts, everybody put down their zip code because they want to know where you're from. Because where you're from is what you are. If you're from southern Louisiana, you like crawfish, you like crabs, you like gumbo, and if you're from up in Maine, you like, whatever they eat up there. I'm not sure. Right. Yeah. I think that's pretty wild.
Lobster.
Well, that's just a big crawfish.
Eat your heart out, Johnny. Eat your heart out.
Remember, a lobster is a big crawfish. That's all that is.
Oh, no, it's not. Oh, no, it's not. It's much more refined.
No, I don't know.
We lost our guest. I don't know what happened.
He fell out the window when I went over there.
So
Oh
final
dear,
analysis,
it's 45
gentlemen.
stories. Oh dear, oh dear. Can you see them down there at all?
Oh my God.
Final analysis, gentlemen. Where's your take on education, academia, AI? What do you think is going to happen there?
I think
I
we'll
think
adjust to it. And we've had lots of discussions. And remember, there's also stuff on the professor side to counter the use of our AI by students so that they're learning within themselves. There are programs where you can tell when the student is typing, when it has been AI'd, if you will, and etc. But it's exciting times. It was exciting times when the computer came in. It took me 2 years to go from writing books on long yellow pads to just writing on my computer. But like
Right.
you said, Andreas, the big difference is this. This thing is very, very different. It is the sum total of our culture. It is
Mm-hmm.
the sum total of all of our knowledge, and we keep adding to it. And every time you write something, it adds
Mm-hmm.
to the knowledge of AI to analyze
That's
or to
right.
provide you data. So I
Yep.
think it's an exciting time. What I worry about in college is the cost and how it would go back to when I was in school.
Right.
If your parents didn't pay, you didn't go.
Mm-hmm.
So in college, I was around, people who paid their parents paid their tuition. We didn't have student loans.
Yeah.
It just didn't happen, and that's what you have to worry about because there's no doubt that the more people are educated, and that means interacting with other people in college, not just what you learn in class, right? It
Mm-hmm.
means
Mm-hmm.
interacting. So that's what I worry about.
I
Llewellyn?
think I think we're entirely in a new. It's true. We keep adding knowledge. I think that the university systems are going to have great difficulty in the same thing that journalism is going to have difficulty with, and that is keeping a handle on truth. It is so easy now to manufacture misinformation, disinformation, total fabrications. And, we've just had a very large law firm in New York, one of the most prestigious, which has basically been caught manufacturing citations. Um, this is a huge challenge, and it's a challenge to knowledge because it is quite easy to infiltrate into the accumulated knowledge dishonesties that might have consequences later, that might emerge later. So I think it's a very difficult time, and that the concentration really needs to be on finding ways to verify what is true, what is accurate, and not to be caught up by what is fabricated, because fabricating is so easy, whether it's in law, in science, or in journalism, or even in history. One of the things we study history and we have historians, partly because nobody can agree what happened. There wouldn't be any historians if everybody agreed what actually happened. This is true. And it's going to be harder to agree what happened when we have stuff which has been fabricated by AI. And at every level of human endeavor, establishing truth is going to be the great challenge of the future.
Well, I see that Bradley had a technology hiccup and he's back.
I'm back.
Bradley, we're over the time. Final thoughts, and thank you for being with us.
Well, the pleasure has been mine. My final thought, I'll tail off with what I heard from Llewellyn there. I have seen two schools of thought among students. The much larger one so far with regard to AI is a great concern over what is real and what is being fabricated and how to tell the difference. And if there's a major contribution that I would like to see us make, it is teaching students how to do that and teach that extraordinarily healthy skepticism of any resource, of anything that they see, and teach them those skills for how to, or at least that way of thinking for how to consider and ask critical, important questions about anything that's in front of them.
Got it. Well, gentlemen, thank you for the discussion today. It's always a pleasure. Bradley, we'll have you a year from now, circle back, see how you're doing and what's the progress of AI in your planet. And thank you for being with us today. Johnny, take us away.
I've got sunshine on a cloudy day.
Thank
When
you
it's
all. Appreciate
cold
it.
outside, and I've got the month of May. Well, I guess you say, what can make me feel this way, my girl?
Woo!
Okay.
All right, Johnny. Thank you,
All right.
sir.
I'll see you
Everybody
in-
have a great week.
I'll
Y'all
see you.
too. Thank you
I'll
again.
see you in
Appreciate y'all
30
having
minutes.
me.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yes, 30 minutes, Johnny. Bye-bye.
Bye.